Welcome, everyone, to Mexican Crossing Lines with your hosts, Cindy Gomez-Schempp.
And Duke Gomez-Schempp.
You're listening to 88.1 FM, KPPPLP, Fargo Moorhead, where we are adding local color to your airwaves. Tonight's show is Giving Up on Asylum. I will be talking to you about how many people who have been stranded in Tijuana and other places at our southern border in Mexico, awaiting their asylum hearings, have decided to return. And I will talk to you about the different ways in which they are returning, by bus, by plane, for what reasons they may be returning. There's a variety of things that people are saying about why they're returning. One of those people is the pastor from the Agape shelter that I have been talking to now for many months, Albert Rivera. And he's sent me some videos of, migrants returning home, some by bus, some by plane, and also talking about how some of these migrants have abandoned their kids, just left them there at the shelter without notifying anybody, without telling anybody, and leaving them with some random strangers with which, they made the trip to Tijuana, and asking those people, hey, take my kid back home. Or in one case, the 9-year-old named Walter, who was abandoned by his dad, was told that this guy that he barely knew who his father left him in the care of, was going to take him to Tapachula in Chiapas, and there he would meet up with some uncles or aunts in the area. And we'll talk about what is happening to those kids instead of that scenario where some stranger takes them back to their country or back to some other location. And what do all of this what does this mean? Some of the news tonight is about immigrants that are giving up on their asylum claims for a completely different reason, which is that they heard about Mexico suing the United States after the massacre that occurred in El Paso, where I believe 8 Mexican nationals lost their lives. And, it's being spoken about by the Mexican president and the Mexican administration that this was a white nationalist terrorist attack against Mexicans. I hate crime, essentially, against Mexicans, which is prompting the Central Americans to fear that they will be killed if they come to the United States. So they're also giving up on their asylum claims for that reason, if you can believe that. All of these things are going to be on tonight's show, including some of the media messaging around these asylum seekers and their return and their confusion. And we'll talk once again about the importance of knowing where your news comes from and who they are. Because a lot of the folks in the Border Support Network that have been not only promoting and helping folks come in caravans to claim asylum that they may or may not be eligible for, but they're also the media messengers and the media allies that are helping share and viralize those stories in the media. That's why it's important to know where our media comes from. But first, I want to thank all of you who support the work of KPPPLP 88.1 FM radio. If you like what you're hearing and learning at our station, and you want to support the work of a non-profit run radio station, non-for-profit, which means we're not commercial, which means corporations don't own us. We answer to our listeners. That's who we're doing our programming for, and we want to inform the public so that they can make the best choices. We want to very soon bring you some news from Tijuana, in-depth reporting from there, so we could use your support for our travel fund, and also for our operational support here at the station. How can folks support our work? And also thank everyone who sent us information and shares our shows. Duke, please.
Well, thank you, listeners. We're very pleased at all the people who have been supporting us, people that watch the shows, people that share the shows, people that make comments, people that get involved, people that send information. It's been wonderful to have the sort of resources across the country and in other countries that we continually get information. We use as much of it we can. We bank some of it and we pull some of it back up. We definitely store a lot on our hard drives. And we thank you all for participating the way you're participating. Welcome tonight. I'll go through a few different ways you can get a hold of us, and also for our listening audience. We do take the audio podcasts of these shows and we put them on the radio here locally. Most of them, not all of them, but we put them on and we edit them for the play on radio. And so people driving around Fargo-Moorhead who listen to our station, who listen to this program that airs at 7 p.m. every night, there's different ways to get a hold of us. One is that you can call our message line and leave a message up to 3 minutes. It's 701-566-0917. Again, that number is 701-566-0917. Leave a message. We get all sorts of interesting calls, and sometimes we air them, and many times we don't. If you don't want your information aired, let us know, and we actually have to let us know in order for us to put it out there, and we just won't put it out there unless you give us permission. If you want to do old-fashioned email, you can email Cindy at kpppfm.com or me, Duke, at kpppfm.com. If you want to tweet us at media_PPP. And on Facebook, we are at 88.1 Fargo-Moorhead, the People's Press Project, and Mexi-Can. Now, our main website is kpppfm.com. Like I said, we put our shows up there. There's a tab that has programs. You can go to Mexican Crossing Lines and see the actual video that was taped from the show tonight, along with the audio podcast. Now, the videos actually are being put on our YouTube channel. If you'd like to subscribe to our YouTube channel, it's Duke1517 or Duke Gomez-Schempp, and you'll find our channel, and please subscribe to it. We're going to do some fun things on YouTube coming up, and we might be doing dual shows, Facebook Live and then YouTube Live and those sorts of things. So it might be some different content that goes up. So join us there so you can keep track of us. And also when you're at kpppfm.com, please go to the donate tab. That's where you can make a tax-deductible donation to our station, as Cindy said, for our operational expenses and our upcoming trip to Tijuana. We need to raise enough money to be able to go. Some of you have contributed, and thank you very much for those contributions. We are still trying to reach that goal. It is August. All of a sudden it's August. The summer's almost over. Here, the leaves are starting to fall off the trees. And it bums me out because I'm still wearing shorts and sandals. And that'll have to change. I have to start putting some pants on. So please contribute to our station. And if you do it by electronically, you'll get a receipt within 1 to 3 days. I'll write a message and make sure you have a copy of what you sent. Also, at the end of the year, I'll actually send you on another receipt, because that's a good thing to do. So please continue to support us. Continue to watch us. Continue to share our shows. And have a great evening on tonight's show.
Okay. So what's going on is really anybody's guess. I'm going to share what I know, and maybe we can come to some conclusions together. But it's disturbing that there are so many people that are coming all the way to the United States-Mexico border with the belief, and we know because we've been told that this is happening in their countries. They're getting in the media, in ads, in newspaper articles. In their home countries, they're being told that on such and such date, a migrant caravan is leaving, that if you join it, it's going to be very easy to get to the U.S. and seek asylum, that, bring a kid. Make sure you bring a kid because you're going to need a kid in order to get across. And there's going to be transportation. There's going to be support for you. So there are going to be jobs waiting. There's all these different things people have been told. We know because we've even seen some of the commercials or news reports from their home countries where they're being fed misinformation. And we also know that along the way, lawyers, uh, accompaniment, escorts of the caravan, which in Mexico are called coyotes, right, have also been giving them different varying information about how easy it would be. In America, we were deceived by the news because on the one hand, we kept being told that they're walking thousands and thousands of miles. They have no help, no support. Nobody's organizing them. Nobody's telling them what to say. Nobody's coaching them. And then days later, they were arriving by the thousands at the furthest border for them to go to in Tijuana, Mexico. And it was kind of stunning because it was pretty hard to cover up the fact that, no, they hadn't walked thousands and thousands of miles. No,
Yep.
They didn't walk all the way. Do you remember all the confusion that was sown in the media, Duke?
Oh, definitely. I remember. I remember that I was always questioning the clothing, the way people looked, and the shoes. Because I've seen people who have walked 1,000 miles, and their shoes wear out. Their clothes get very dirty. They look very haggard. And I remember watching these, and it was my first comment. At first, I thought, how come I'm picking on these people on it? But it just doesn't look. It looks like they just went to a store and got brand new clothing, and they've been like riding a bus, and everybody's hair was done fine and all these sorts of things. So I started to question things right away. And as we learned, we started finding out people were being bussed, they were being flown. There's this whole scam thing going on for months and months and months.
Right. So essentially, people were paying for a service. Father Solalinde, many of the people in Mexico, including human rights defenders like Father Solalinde, Alejandro Solalinde, that have worked with migrants and helped give them hospice or, not hospice, hospitality, and some form of a shelter or food along the way as they make their trek, either because they got deported and they're going back through Mexico to their countries, or because they're coming through Mexico to go to the U.S. or Canada. Even he noticed, because he was told directly by countless people that Pueblos Sin Fronteras and the organizations funding and helping that group were smuggling people and trafficking humans. And some of these people were not good. Father Solalinde said that he collected 2 sacks of guns from some of the migrants that were coming to the United States. And because people like him began to speak up, because people that are experts in the field like Guadalupe Correa Cabrera began to notify the media and tell people there are coyotes, traffickers among the organizations and groups bringing the caravans. There are people exploiting the migrants, taking thousands of dollars for them, abusing them, lying to them, filling them with false hope. And the crooked lawyers groups that work alongside of these accused human smugglers, alleged human smugglers of Pueblos Sin Fronteras, they tell everyone in the caravan, you have a right to seek asylum. Never mind whether or not you can afford it, never mind whether or not you will be eligible for it, and how long it's going to take, the jeopardy that your family is going to be put through. They just put that, dream in front of their faces and said, you have a right to this dream just as much as anyone has. And sure, everyone has a right to dream. Everyone does. And sure, everyone has a right to migrate. I have a right to free speech. We all have these unalienable rights as human beings that we're told about by the Declaration of Human Rights of the United Nations, by other organizations, by our religions. But traveling is a privilege most of the time because you need money and a destination, right?
Mm-hmm.
Also, if you have a criminal record, especially one that would bar most countries from wanting you to enter, that country has a right to ask you your identity.
Yep.
And to check whether or not they want you coming into their country at this time. Countries have sovereignty and they have a right to, invoke those requirements of people traveling into their country. You're also barred from bringing in strange animals or fruits, especially endangered species. You can go to jail for a long time for going to Africa and bringing back an elephant tusk. Or people do crazy things like that.
They do.
But our customs and border agents have the right to stop them and go, yeah, that's against the law. You can't do that. And they have reasons. They have valid reasons. They want to stop the spread of diseases. Mm-hmm. They want to stop the spread of invasive animals that maybe don't have predators. You know what kind of damage happens when you take things that don't belong and shouldn't be in another country and seed it into their ecosystem?
Mm-hmm.
That stuff happens here, and it has destroyed a lot of, you've heard about this, right, Duke?
Oh, definitely. My father works on water issues, and even a river going into Canada from the United States, which the Mouse River, which is in Minot, North Dakota, it comes out of Canada, goes in the United States, goes back in. And, there's all sorts of regulatory things there, and they've wanted to take water from Garrison Reservoir and move it over to the Red River, basically, that goes into Canada. And Canada is like, we don't want these invasive plants, these different things that would change their whole ecosystem and their waterways. And they're very proud of their waterways because, the central part of Canada is full of a lot of water that goes all the way up to Lake Huron. And look what happened in Australia. They brought in one species that all of a sudden had no predators, and it took over as like a rat type thing. So they got something to eat the rats, and then those got all over the place, and they had to find something to kill those. So they end up having these multiple animals that had no predators above them, and it would dominate the ecosystem. And it's the same thing happened in Hawaii, and Hawaii is full of all sorts of invasive species. And you need to be able to regulate that, so if people just bring it in anything, they got to be checked for sure.
And let's not forget the fact that lots of people have been caught making fake families and recycling children and taking children that aren't theirs over the border. Those things shouldn't be happening. If you're angry about families being separated, you should be looking at the root of where that came from, okay? I have to tell you a story really quick because I want folks to understand my point of view as an organizer, as somebody that was trained to look at how to find solutions effectively for problems in society, and why I view these organizations and groups that say that they want to provide humanitarian assistance to the migrants in the caravan to be, being ineffective, I guess, is the nicest thing I can say about it. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they're purposely obtuse about how to go about the best way of doing it, but it feels like they got sucked in to giving charity versus
justice.
You taught us that when you were training us as organizers. Yeah. That's one of the first premises that you said. There was a difference.
Yep.
Can you talk a little bit about that just for a second?
Sure. I used to be a trainer in community organizing as well as a community organizer for several decades. And organizers are about developing power in people and helping people solve their own problems. And it's basically like you're a coordinator and trainer and leadership developer. You're not out there doing the stuff. You're getting other people involved. So we tell the story about this town that had, you heard a little bit different, but this all of a sudden there's these babies floating in the river. And people are all freaked out, and they're like, they pull this baby out, and they're like, the baby, and there's another one. And they dive in and get another one. And they started pulling these babies out. So they got all the people together, all the resources to pull these babies out of the river that are floating down the river.
But pretty soon the whole town was involved. I mean, at first they were just like, okay, somebody's got to take care of this baby. But then they had to set up, like all of the different services to take care of the babies, and more people got involved. Some people got involved. They're like, how are we going to close the babies? How are we going to feed the babies?
Yep. So all the town's resources started going towards caring for these babies and plucking them out of the river. And the organizers spent a lot of time with people and finally came up with the radical ideas that, what we have to do? We have to go to find out how these babies are falling in the river in the first place. We have to go upstream, find that, and stop them from falling in. And that's a lesson in community organizing, is that you can deal with all the symptoms, and you can pull babies out of the river, and you're never going to end. You're going to use all your resources dealing with the symptom, but you need to organize and go upstream and stop the problem from happening in the first place, and then you won't have babies in the river anymore.
When I was told that at organizing training, that story, it was a little bit different in the ending because a group of people in the community leaders that wanted to stop the suffering of all of the resources and the people and involving themselves and having to care for these babies and how this was impacting all these babies, where were they coming from? They said, we're going to go upstream and find out who's throwing the babies in the river, or how the babies are getting in the river, and we're going to stop it. And the townspeople said, we can't spare you. We can't have you leave and go and find out where the babies are coming from. We need you here. Why aren't you here working with us on getting the babies out of the river? Focus on that. Focus on getting the babies out of the river and getting them to safety. Why do you feel like you need to leave town and stop helping us? And that's the short-sightedness of those who only want to focus on the symptoms of the problem and not on the nexus of where they were created. And the nexus of where they were created was who was encouraging people under false pretenses and false hope that they should come and seek asylum. When now it is abundantly clear that the majority of these people will not get asylum. And I showed you via proof, evidence of videos, Lolly B, Jake Lee, volunteers working with Al Otro Lado, where they admitted, I should have had you cue up that video, where they admitted that the majority of the people that they are quote unquote helping would not get asylum. Yes, most of them will not qualify, said Laura Christina Livingston Berger, Lolly B. So they knew, but they whispered it. They whispered in the video. Remember, she's like, most of them won't get it. That's the part you should be yelling most loudly. That's the part that everyone should have been telling these people honestly. Look, listen, I know the kind of sacrifice that you have to make in order to come and take advantage of this opportunity to quote unquote claim asylum because of a loophole in the asylum claims process. But I know you're probably going to take out a big loan in your country for thousands of dollars in some cases from people that don't have that kind of money. So maybe you have to borrow it from some less than desirable source that will collect their money one way or the other from you or from your family members in the agreed upon time frame. So you're being able to pay back this money so that you can travel is going to imply that you got to get into the U.S., successfully claim asylum, and then start working immediately so you can start paying back that loan. That's the dream. That's the hope most of these folks have. But what they're finding instead is that all their money that is coming from getting loans from their family members back home or from those not so desirable sources, or maybe they make some kind of agreement, which is even more dangerous, to be a drug mule, or they get roped into crossing some other kind of contraband by the cartels or the coyotes. Those people are even greater risk, of going to jail, of getting killed, being extorted, being kidnapped. And in the end, if all of those people had known that 99% of them weren't going to get asylum claims, do you really think they would have put their lives in jeopardy and the lives of their children, as they have done, as so many have done? These people are now angry, as they should be. I told you that the fallout of immigrants demanding justice, saying, we were lied to, we were given false hopes, false information, encouraged to come, so we did, and now we have nothing. We're getting nothing. None of the promises are coming true. Who will be held accountable for that? Will any of the people that helped encourage them and misinform them pay any kind of price for what they have done to these thousands and thousands of people, especially those in Tijuana? I doubt it. I seriously doubt it. I can only pray and hope, because I think they should be made examples of for what they have done to these, some of the most, seriously in need people, seriously impoverished people and vulnerable people, migrants. And here are some of these migrants whose dreams have been dashed. This is just one of the videos sent to me by the pastor at the Agape shelter. And they're boarding a giant bus. They're about to get on a big, looks like commercial, like tourism?
Tourist bus.
Tourist bus that I believe they were all paid money to rent, because the pastor sent me this video saying that more than 40 migrants we're going to be leaving in this bus that was going to take them all the way to Tapachula, where they would get off, and then, which is the border, basically the border with Guatemala. Mm-hmm. And then from there they would continue their path into their home countries. They all had to buy a ticket to get on this bus. And he also said more migrants would be leaving soon after that. Let's take a listen to what the pastor says as they climb onto the bus. Turn him down. Here we are. The migrants from Agape shelter are returning to their home countries. A total of about 47, 48 of them. They're going back to their countries. They all bought their own tickets. Some are going to go back to get evidence for their court cases in the U.S. Some of them have just lost hope, and they don't think they'll get in. Some want to go, some are going back to go to school. So that's the situation. Some see that there's no possibility for the American dream. And others are going back so they can get evidence for their claims of asylum. Think about all the resources that are getting used. Here they are on the bus now, he says. There they all are. Think about all the resources that were used: shelters, food, water, diapers, formula, all along the way, all along their route. For over a year now, Duke, this has been going on.
It has been.
Caravan after caravan after caravan. with a lot of the folks that were in that caravan just simply discarding in giant trash heaps everything that they were given in one town before they went to another, because they knew they were going to get more donations at the next spot. Didn't bother to wash clothes or anything, just throw it all in the trash. Think about all the resources in shelters in the United States, plane tickets, all these things, right?
The tents.
Everything that's being put into this. And for what? For the majority of these people to just end up going back home? That's what we did all of this for? That's why we put all these people in danger for a nightmarish field trip based on broken promises that ends with some of you getting raped, killed, some of you getting squeezed and extorted for money, kidnapped, trafficked. Also that you end up going back home with nothing to show for it. How many people have they done this scam on?
Mm-hmm.
Think about the number of people. And many of them, folks, are actually getting assistance from the OIM. You know what the OIM is, Duke?
Nope. Officer something M.
No? Yeah, it's a good guess, though, honey. And no, actually, it's called the Organización Internacional para Migrantes. And that stands for International Migrant Organization, which is part of the United Nations.
Okay.
And has been part of the United Nations since 2016. It was officially incorporated as part of the UN, and it was a historic decision. And those folks, by the way, I'll share an article from 2016 from the United Nations, and in Spanish. I apologize for it, but that's where I find the information about this new organization, OIM, in which it says that. Do you want to jump ahead a little bit and go to the article OIM? It's right there. No, you went too far. Right at the top. Which will give you an idea of what they are. This is again from 2016 when they first joined the United Nations. And it says that the signatories for this new alliance with OIM were Ban Ki-moon, the Director General of OIM, William Lacey Swing. Those were the two dudes. And they were very proud of it because this is the culmination of relations between these two groups for 65 years. And for the first time in 71 years, said Mr. William Lacey Swing, the United Nations has an agency for migration specifically. And it is an honor for the UN, and I think for the success for migrants to be concrete, but also for our member states, member nations, and for this, reunion. So, ever since 2016, this OIM organization has existed specifically to help migrants. And they created it just in time with the foreshadowing of a lot of these refugee crises that were breaking out around the world. So this group has started to offer people free tickets back home. Interestingly, many of the organizations, people, indigenous groups and such that were making declarations before the UN, closely affiliated with the UN, working on issues of migration and supporting this mass migration and the pact that was signed by Mexico and other countries on how migrants should be treated, is also now throwing in the towel and helping them get back home, which I think is very telling. Here is the free ticket offer. The van, this particular van, is a van coming to pick up some of the migrants And Pastor Albert narrates what they were offered. Turn him down.
Aquí ya llegaron los de las Naciones Unidas.
The United Nations has arrived.
OVNI, y
OIM.
llegaron para llevarse a los
And
inmigrantes.
they're taking the
Aquí nomás
migrants.
es un grupito chico de
This is a small
13
group,
que se
about
están
13
yendo,
people.
pero
They're
según
leaving.
los inmigrantes,
But according to the migrants,
el vuelo es gratis,
the
pero ellos
flight is
están
free.
renunciando a lo que
But
viene
they
a ser
have
su
to
cita migratoria
give up
en
on their
Estados
asylum
Unidos,
claim in the United States.
firmar un documento
They had to
que no van a
sign a
regresar para la
document
corte.
that they will not be going back
Dios
for
lo
their
bendiga.
for their asylum hearing.
Están renunciando a su cita
So they're giving up
migratoria.
their hearing date. So that's the deal, folks. You got to get that, signature that these folks are going back and they're giving up on their hearing date. Okay? And the OIM, is this the next one? Which one's the next one you got?
It's just a slide.
The slide?
Yeah.
Can we see that?
For a moment, please.
There it is. The voluntary return offered. It's kind of, like a form of self-deportation, I guess, if you will. And the United Nations says, you want to go back to your country of origin? Well, OIM can support you in your voluntary return, with a program that is both free and confidential. The processing for OIM does not implicate sheltering you in a migrant detention facility. So you can use this process and you won't go to a detention facility. We will not be going to a detention facility as part of the process, which a lot of people want to avoid. They don't want to be stuck in a detention facility in Mexico anymore. Then they want to be stuck in one in the U.S. for various reasons. And you can see there it says ONU, which is, the United Nations, and Mesoamérica, Progreso Regional sobre Migración, National Progress on Migration. So they offered these folks the opportunity to go back home, no questions asked. You don't got to go to a detention center. And here you see the folks taking off, go back to their country. Here's another video clip.
Que el Señor los bendiga.
May God bless you.
Acá los esperamos y algún día se animan a regresar, ¿eh?
We'll be waiting for if you decide to come back one day.
Amén. Dios los bendiga. Aquí van, se están regresando. Son los de las Naciones Unidas que vinieron acá.
There they go. They're going back to their homes.
Ellos son
UN came for them.
están llevando a los
The United Nations came to take them.
Supuestamente están firmando un documento.
They're signing a document.
Están renunciando su cita migratoria.
They're giving up their hearing on asylum.
Ya. Ahorita se van.
So they're leaving.
Van a ir al aeropuerto. El departamento de salud los va a mirar.
They're going to go to the airport. Department of Health is going to look them over before they travel.
Sale el vuelo de avión.
1 o'clock in the morning,
Van hasta Honduras. Bueno,
the plane leaves and they're all headed to Honduras. There they go. So, again, just reiterating, they're going back to their country. A little bit more detail there about what the process is. They've got to check them out for history, even just to fly home. There's a process. You can't just get on a plane and leave, right? Ben, I already shared the article, so we can skip over that, but I wanted to show when they arrived at the airport. Here's a post of Pastor Albert's that shows them getting to the airport to go back to Honduras with OIM, and then here they are boarding the plane. You can see there's quite a few people there. And the pastor says right there on his post that all these folks decided to give up on their asylum claim. What do you think about that, Duke? You know, all of these thousands and thousands of people said they were fleeing for their lives, literally, because they couldn't return to their countries on pain of death. On pain of death.
Well, the people in the van seemed they weren't too sad about it. You know, it wasn't like they're, oh my God, I'm going to have to go back to where we were being hunted down. They were laughing, and it's like, oh, the field trip is over. And the people in it bothers me. Well, we already knew that people were being amassed at the border, that they weren't going to get in. There's going to be all these people, you know, pretty much stuck in Mexico, and
most of them in Tijuana,
and many, many more coming. And the word hadn't gotten out that you're not going to be able to accomplish what you were told. And now they're getting free tickets home, you know, and it's just, to me, it's like you said, it's what a waste of resources. All the resources going into this when there's so much poverty and hunger all over the world and in Mexico. Over 60% of the people live in dire poverty. The United States has a lot of poverty too. All this money and stuff is wasted. And it's like Standing Rock, you know, $38 million was wasted, and all these supplies people sent. All these people sent these supplies, and these people are collecting this stuff and giving people food, trying to keep them alive, giving them a place to stay, things that they can wear, and now they're going home. You know, it does bother me a lot too.
It's also just kind of infuriating that they took advantage of some of the most naive people with that, you know, coming from extreme poverty and a lack of access to education, that were kind of hornswoggled into believing that they get to just go to the U.S. border and everything's going to be provided and things are going to be hunky-dory when they're really not, when they just really are not. But even in through, you know, this whole ordeal, some of these folks are just lucky to experience for the first time getting on a plane, because most of them appear to have never really experienced that. It's kind of a treat. And like I said at the beginning of my show, travel is a luxury.
Yeah.
Travel is a privilege. Most people can't afford to do it, especially not in a plane.
Yeah.
Check it. Here's the migrants. You can see they're pretty jazzed.
Mm-hmm.
What does that guy look like, Duke?
Looks pretty happy. It's like, yep, we're on a flight. We're flying home. We don't have to walk thousands of miles home. You know, instead of saying, okay, walk home, they're sitting in a plane.
Yeah. And they're pretty jazzed. It's they're going back home. They're giving up their asylum claim. They don't look terrified or upset.
Yep.
Just gave up your chance to go into the United States and claim asylum and live here in the greatest country on the face of the planet, and you're just like, nah, I guess I'll take a plane home.
Yep.
It doesn't just seem like a waste of resources, and it seems so pointless. Just pointless. All of the people coming here just for this pointless trip to the Tijuana border. Yeah. You get to see the beach and then you go fly home. I mean, some people are going back almost immediately.
Mm-hmm.
In this next video, they make very almost difficult for me to believe claim that was triggered by the mass shooting that went, well, not just the one in El Paso, but specifically that one, but also the one in Ohio. And the claim by this clip is that some people are giving up their asylum claims because they're afraid of the terrorism against Mexicans or against brown people, the race, basically white nationalist terrorism occurring in the United States. Take a listen for yourselves. Mexico announced that it would be part of the lawsuit to get a recognition of this act of terrorism against Mexicans. But what is very clear is that the message was received, and even the Central Americans received the message. which is, good afternoon. This weekend was crucial for many Central American migrants who had been returned to Mexico to wait for their asylum claims. The killings that took place in the U.S. basically turned them away from wanting to return to the United States. This woman gave up on her American dream. After the massacres that happened in Ohio and Texas, her family begged her to come back home for her safety. It feels terrible. Here in the U.S., they say that you're going to be safe because there's laws and all that, but when you see this, it's terrible. But my family says not to leave this place. Nobody else here at the shelter can talk about anything else except for the massacre. And fear turns into terror when they think about being transferred from Houston, Texas to Otay Mesa. Yeah, they terrorized us in the detention centers. They yell at the kids, especially. They're so tired. They would sleep. And in the morning, very early, they just knock on them and on the door and take our blankets off. And not even 2 days after some of them had been returned to Mexico to await their asylum hearing, a whole slew of them decided they wanted to go home. Go back, have a good time back in your country. These 48 that left, why don't you wait and get on the asylum list? But they're desperate because of everything that happened. There's 220 migrants here at this shelter. 60% is seeking to return back to their homes. And they're getting help from the UN. And the authorities are going to be back tomorrow to ask to see who wants to go back in a plane. They'll give them free tickets. This Honduran mother is already picking up her things. Whether on plane or on bus, she wants to go back home with her family. She hasn't seen them for months. Think about, you go to court, and then at the end of all of that, you're going to end up deported anyway. I mean, what's the point? Of the 48 migrants that were going to Tapachula, Chiapas, about 10 of them said they will be returning to go to their asylum hearings, and they're going there to collect some evidence for their asylum hearings that they're required to have. So, what do we know about these flights offered in Mexico? According to the shelter pastor, that they will be offering 4 flights a week, and that practically the cost of the ticket is nothing.
Wow.
So, there you have it, folks. That busload of people that you just saw that we talked about had people on it that, according to this news report, were actually leaving after just having gone to their initial hearing dates, crossing the border, requesting asylum, getting out of detention, being transferred back to Mexico to await your asylum hearing. You know what? I'm not going to even try. Why would you do that, Duke? Why would somebody do that? I mean, I could guess that maybe they told you something at your initial appointment that made you feel less hope, like you don't have any evidence.
Well, it's hard for me to believe that people are just hearing about this now, that you're not going to get granted asylum. That word has been out there for a long time. And it just, and for them just to go, well, okay, well, what that woman said was like, why? I'm not going to sit here and just waste my time to actually sit in the shelter for months and months and months, and or go be detained for years, and go to my hearing and get deported. I'm going to take the free plane home, and it's just that word has been out for a long time. And what about all the people that are still coming? I mean, what about all the people that are still believe that they can go cross the border, get a court hearing, be released in the United States, and have asylum and start working, and sending money back home? It's just like this thing is such a lie, and people are still coming here under that lie, and these people are waking up. And also the cost of you going back and then coming to your asylum hearing, Who's going to fund that? Is that the next ball of money that needs to be fundraised for? That everybody that's sent back has to come for their hearings, so we need a bunch of money to get people to their hearings? Is that what's going to come up next? Don't know.
God only knows. It's just so bizarre. But, there's definitely a message, as the reporter said, that is being sent through the media. And part of it has to do with fear-mongering. Maybe the same people that wound up all these immigrants and said, hurry, go seek asylum, it's your right.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be super easy, are now realizing that, oh, snap.
Mm-hmm.
Those people are going to be sent to Mexico to wait, and there's nothing we can do about it except tell people that we're fundraising for our lawsuit. But in reality, those people that are stuck at the border for months and years,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to hate us, and we're never going to be able to raise enough money to put them all up in, rooms and crappy rooms where they will, languish without jobs, most of them. And we're going to have a mob on our hands, an angry mob with pitchforks and stuff,
Yeah.
So we should tell them that they need to go now.
Yeah.
Maybe go back home because it doesn't look like you got chances to get in.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know for sure. I mean, I can speculate, but there is a lot of things that lead me to believe the way that I do. I'm not just, kind of making it up as I go. And I'm going to show you some of these things, and we can discuss whether or not you agree. Let's look at this article. Or wait, what's next? Right?
Yeah.
This article about the refugees going back. This is in Spanish. And the pastor from the shelter of Agape sent this to me about the same people getting on the same bus that was written in this newspaper, La Opinión. And by the way, this is the same group of people going on the same blue-colored bus that was just in the news story about those who fear white supremacist terrorism in
Okay.
America.
All right.
Okay? Same bus.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it says at the headline, refugees or, migrants return to their homes, their places of origin for evidence to request asylum in the U.S. And the subhead says, many of the people are not sure if they will be able to return to request asylum. Others have no options, no other option. I mean, but to return. Others have no other option but to return to request asylum. Okay? And who is it written by? Who is this article written by, Duke?
Manuel, I can't read that.
Well, you're scrolling on the wrong side here. So if you could scroll on the other side, on the other one, so that the one that people can see. Yeah, if you can scroll on that one. So scroll down a little bit. You can't scroll on it? Oh, there is his name. Do you remember who that is?
I can't read it.
Well, you just read his name. Do you remember who that person is, I mean?
No.
Well, I've shown him a couple of times, but I bet you Oscar El Blue Ramirez remembers him. Because recently, Oscar El Blue Ramirez, with whom we have collaborated with on news stories in Tijuana, he is a Tijuanense and a reporter there. He's been doing extensive work, not only in Tijuana, he's gone to Tapachula to report from Tapachula several times. He went recently to Caritas Shelter, run by Mark Lane, Bertie Gutierrez, that crew.
Mm-hmm.
And there was the lady from Estefania Rebelon, the actress, with her bus, with her Yes We Can bus right there.
Yeah.
And there was a bunch of reporters there, all of whom had been invited for a
Okay.
press kind of event about the bus opening up for school for these kids who can't go to regular school. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the reporters that had written that Teen Vogue article about the LGBTQIA caravan that included Pitaya Queen that had been, run out of town by the transphobic, murderous Mexicans that they needed to flee from immediately. Ari Harnorvar was in that video that Oscar took. And Leti Herrera, the manager that they have from Tijuana, that's a Mexican, she was in the video. Manuel Ocaño was also in the video. This guy seems to be almost everywhere where many of the key people of the Border Support Network are, talking about the migrants and the issues facing the migrants.
Yep. So he's the plant from the media that's covering their stuff. I see.
Well, I'm going to just show you some things, and you can tell me what you think about it.
All right.
In this article, it says that Felipe got to Tijuana the week of August 5th of 2019, and he decided to go back with his kids, with his 8-year-old, to Quetzaltenango. Why? He's quoted here. It's because when I came here, I did not think that I was going to need this evidence that they were going to ask me to have. And he explained that was with, he had his first interview, credible fear interview in a federal court in San Diego, which, now he faces a trial, an asylum hearing in January 7th, about half a year from now. And some of the evidence that he needs is a police report that he made more than a year ago, where he reported that out of the 40 quetzales that he makes, which is about a little bit over $5, okay? Per day, was taken from him. Almost all of it was taken from him by the gangs. As we know, MS-13 has a lot of, territory there in Central America, and they left him with only 10 quetzales out of the 5 that he makes per day. So that didn't leave him with enough money to survive. And hopefully he believes that police report that he filed back home will be useful for him, would be useful for him to get his asylum granted in the U.S. What do you think?
Can't you give him a call? Don't they have email? Don't they have a fax machine? That he has to travel all the way there to get a police report? I mean, that to me seems like there's something else going on. But I can understand if you need to collect evidence, which people should have been doing in the first place, is collecting the evidence that they can basically, have their asylum claim, met, that they can actually, really prove that they're in danger and meet some of the criteria to be able to actually be, successful in asylum claim. Although those asylum claims, most of them don't get it, So for people to be traveling all the way back home to get a police report from the police station, you think you could have a little bit more efficient way of getting that information. Why don't they hire a person to go down and collect information? I mean, why are they going to send all these people back? They collect all the information, and how are they going to get back to actually present their case? I mean, again, it sounds really, really inefficient. Sounds really fishy to me also.
Also, there's an assumption that amount of evidence, that particular piece of evidence, will be sufficient. In my limited understanding of asylum claims, albeit limited understanding, I believe that you have to have very tangible evidence of imminent threat to your life.
I see.
Being robbed on one occasion by gangs, which are prevalent in all countries, it just may not cut it. I'm not. We don't have currently under the system of justice and immigration in America. We don't really give people asylum claims because of gang violence in other countries. Not one of the things that you get asylum claims granted for. And I don't think that anybody with the wherewithal, with the knowledge to advise these folks did so in a way that gave them the proper and necessary information to be successful at any kind of a claim.
Yep.
And then it goes on to say in this article that, these folks left their home countries back in, or this particular guy being interviewed and quoted here, said that, they had just left in June and traveled with his kid all the way to the Reynosa, Tamaulipas border, where they crossed through the river and then turned themselves over to the Border Patrol and requested asylum, like so many other people we have heard have done.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they gave him his appointment for his asylum hearing for January, 6 months into the future, he decided that, it was going to be necessary for him to get more evidence for his asylum claim to be viable. And this is happening to a lot of people. A large number of people are now being told, why are we hearing about this for the first time now?
Yeah.
Why is this important to some of these reporters and to some of these people who are part of the border support network themselves? Even their media allies. Why is it suddenly important? And here's something really, really interesting. Okay, I want to go to the LA Times article now.
All right.
Which is another article talking about the same thing, but in English.
Okay.
I will share that with you as well, so y'all can go and check it out for yourself. This one was written by Molly Hennessy Frisk and Wendy Fry.
Okay.
Wendy Fry of the San Diego Union Tribune and many other places.
Mm-hmm.
Wendy Fry that actually fundraises for Border Angels and others of these folks in the Border Support Network, working with the accused alleged smugglers, Pueblos Sin Fronteras. That Wendy Fry.
Mm-hmm.
And what does it say? Well, this one is a little bit more slashing, more cutting. When U.S. officials walked about 200 asylum seekers south across the bridge from Texas last week, the migrants were clutching court paperwork, planning to stay in Mexico as they pursue their cases. But their hopes fizzled as soon as they viewed their temporary home, a trash-strewn parking lot at the edge of the bridge, the treeless concrete expanse wedged between the river and a Mexican immigration building. Already packed with 250 returnees, some of whom had been there for 10 days. This was not what U.S. Customs and Border Protection officials had promised migrants under the Trump administration's Remain in Mexico program, designed to prevent asylum seekers from skipping court, and disappearing into the U.S. illegally. The program requires them to wait to the outcome of their cases in Mexico, while allowing them to cross legally for court hearings. Most must wait several months just for their initial hearing, and few have access to immigration lawyers. Guess how many have access to immigration lawyers? Just guess.
Yes, and what's happening in all these legal funds that are being raised and all these people saying they're doing legal work for asylum cases along the border? Where's all that money went?
Also, remember that Al Otro Lado doesn't actually take clients.
That's right.
else. They just sue Trump or Border Patrol or other agencies trying to investigate their shenanigans. And guess what?
What?
Well, this article goes on to allege that what is being done to, families and through the asylum seeking process by U.S. authorities is psychological damage,
Oh, okay.
like it's, they treating them like animals. I mean, this literally says they don't secure us. We can't bathe. They don't have food. They treat us like dogs. And this is the stark statistic, Duke. This is the ugly truth that Lolly B, that Jake Lee, that all the people from the Border Support Network, including Al Otro Lado, Pueblos Sin Fronteras, and all of these other people slamming the walls of America saying, let them all in. They all deserve to seek, they have the right to seek asylum. What they didn't say is that over the last 5 months, the U.S. has returned more than 20,000 asylum seekers to Tijuana, Mexicali, Juarez, Nuevo Laredo, and Matamoros.
Wow.
And that, according to Mexican officials, most of these folks are not going to have any assistance from attorneys. So once again, where did all of that millions of dollars for all these legal defenses go? Where did it go? Because like I said, when I went down to Tijuana with Oscar El Blue Ramirez, I reported to you that the majority of the people that I interview all said they couldn't get anyone to pick up a phone.
Yep.
They couldn't get anybody to be their lawyer. An analysis, this is startling, Duke, of the immigration court records by Transnational Record Access Clearinghouse at Syracuse University showed that 1,155 remain in Mexico asylum cases had been decided by the end of June. That's only 14 cases.
Really?
Yep. That's 1.2% of the cases, of all the cases with attorneys.
Wow.
1.2% of the people had cases with attorneys. That's it.
Wow.
Oh, by the way, not a single person had been granted asylum.
Great. Yeah.
And there's still 12,997 cases pending.
Wow. Oh my God. And so this is being reported in the LA Times. And it's like, where have they been all this time? LA Times.
She was the one that quoted Evan Duke about our radio station host.
Yeah, and she's the one that went to the shelter after we were there, and trying to unscoop you, basically. And now they're, I smell a further deepening scam coming here. That's what I smell. I don't know if you have going to talk about that tonight, but that's my first reaction.
Well, I'm just trying to learn. I'm collecting information,
Yep.
And it's funny because the same person that is in the media, like Wendy Fry, that is writing these articles, is that I told you tweets fundraising support for people like Border Angels and Hugo Castro. That we know have been accused of escorting or coyoteing people along with Pueblos Sin Fronteras. And she writes in this article in the LA Times that there are people that have traveled north with smugglers who had codes that were supposed to be given to cartel members to, anybody that stopped them on the streets and try to hustle them, but that many of them crossed into different smugglers' territories and then their little code word didn't work. And many of the migrants had been snatched from parking lots and held for ransom as high as $8,000. These are the people writing the fluff pieces that lionized Al Otro Lado, that lionize all of these, people and lift them up as being great defenders of human rights and feeding the narrative of false hope of those groups and organizations. But they know exactly what really happens to these folks. It's almost sort of like a gross consumption of the people and their suffering. And I don't even know. Now, it looks like Molly Hennessy Fiske also wrote this piece.
Okay.
But as you saw, it does say that Wendy Fry also helped to write it, so that both of them wrote it together. And I believe that it's very telling that this is the lowest, the very smallest number of people actually have 1% of all of the people. Do you think that the money that they collected, all of those different lawyers groups, immigrant rights lawyers groups and stuff, to help these people seek asylum, you think that all the millions of dollars they all collected didn't amount to being able to give legal defense to even 3% or 4%, which is the actual percentage of people that get granted asylum?
You would think so. You would think so. You would think that they would be figuring out strategies and figuring out, legal means to be able to assist people, because that's what they've been promoting this whole time. I mean, I've seen all sorts of, groups, promoting that they need to raise money for these legal fees to help people with their asylum hearings. And then for people to go unrepresented, and like that list we actually showed on our show that actually had the telephone numbers of, 20, 30 groups that were supposed to lend legal services, and people said none of them answer the phone. Those people aren't connecting with the people that need help, and the people aren't getting the help, and yet they're fundraising and they're creating this whole credibility that they're doing this work because they don't think anyone's going to check on them. That's what I think. No one's going to check on them.
I was listening to a podcast that was tweeted out by Al Otro Lado's lawyer that is stationed there in Tijuana, who's always complaining about how poor she is.
Yeah. You
know who I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
That had Nora Phillips, one of the lawyers there, talking about, well, you heard it. They talked incessantly with this podcast lawyer about how poor they were and self-care and how much money their nonprofits get.
Yeah. And how traumatized they are. All of them are suffering from PTSD because they've met these people that are in these dire situations. Now they all suffer. They're all suffering. They're poor, they're suffering, and they're psychologically harmed because they talk to a person that's, in a situation that needs help,
And here's the people that are really suffering. The migrants themselves. Many of them are children. Check out this video about a little boy named Walter. News report. A 9-year-old boy was abandoned in Tijuana by his dad. This is a real head puzzle. Many people could be adopted by foster families, but according to the bureaucrats, it's just too much work. There are more unaccompanied minors that are left at the border because of the desperation their parents have to cross into the U.S. Today, you will meet Walter, who was left 2 days ago in Tijuana. Just with the clothes on his back at the border, he was left at the shelter. His name is Walter, and he's 9 years old. And now he counts the hours to go back to see his mother, who he hasn't seen for 2 months. 2 days ago, his father woke him up in the morning and left him with a stranger, a guy he met on the road. He said, "This man, you'll stay with him? He's going to take care of you. He's going to take you back to Tapachula, and your uncles will be there waiting." The Agape shelter was taking care of him. The unaccompanied minor phenomenon is more and more common because of the desperation to cross into the U.S. From November to this present moment, there was about 8,000 unaccompanied minors. We asked about where the children will be sheltered temporarily with foster families, but we were surprised with the response. We were told
No tenemos el personal
We don't have the
para
personnel
atender a tantos niños.
to take care of that many
Tampoco
kids.
tenemos los psicólogos
We don't have the
suficientes
psychologists,
para poderlos atender. Tampoco
and we don't
tenemos
have
las instalaciones para
the
tener todos esos
facilities
menores de edad,
to have
ni
all of those
tampoco
minors,
tenemos el presupuesto.
nor do we have
En
any
Baja
budget for that.
California sí existe
In
la
Baja
posibilidad
California,
de una adopción
there is
temporal. La
a
figura
possible
jurídica
to
se
have foster
llama
families.
familias de acogimiento, pero nunca
Shelter
se han
families is the
concretado
name of
las solicitudes.
the
No es
place, but
prácticamente una
they
adopción,
don't. It's not
pero
really an
es un
adoption.
proceso que
It's a
establece la
process
ley,
that establishes
donde
under the
una
law
familia
where a
está
family
interesada
is
en dar
interested in
acogimiento
to
temporal
give
a
temporary
algún
foster
niño,
care
niña o
to a
adolescente.
child
Hasta ahorita
that is a minor,
no se ha
but we haven't had a
dado
lot of applications
formalmente porque no
from people.
hemos aterrizado esta figura.
We don't have a
Walter
figure.
estará unos días
for
más
how
en
many.
Tijuana. Para evitar ir a un
Walter will be
albergue,
here
fue
for a few
llevado
more
al
days.
consulado de Guatemala en esta ciudad. Hoy, le
Today,
permitieron salir, pero solo
they
para
let him
despedirse
leave
de
the
sus
shelter
amiguitos
where he
del
was,
albergue.
but only so that he could say goodbye to his friends at the
De
shelter.
acuerdo al Centro de Atención Integral del DIF del Estado, a este
DIF has
esquema de familias de
stated
acogimiento se pueden amparar tanto niños
that
mexicanos, pero también migrantes de otras nacionalidades.
children
Esperan que la próxima
from
administración
Mexico as
mantenga
well
el
as
tiempo de
other
definir
nations
los
can
requisitos de este procedimiento.
use this foster care system.
¿Qué sabe del papá de este niño?
What do they know about
En
the
la
father?
Embajada de Guatemala pudieron
The Embassy of
contactarlo
Guatemala
y confirmó
was
que
able
se
to get a
encuentra
hold of
del
them,
lado mexicano en
and
Monterrey,
he's
Nuevo León.
in Monterrey, Nuevo León.
Bonita tarde.
So he just left his son at this shelter, little Walter there, and gave him to a rando stranger that he met along the route and said, "This dude's going to take care of you and he's going to take you back to Tapachula, not back to his home,
Yeah.
to the border of Guatemala, and turn you over to your uncles." How does he know that this guy isn't going to steal his kid, sell his kid, rape his kid, lose his kid, or whatever? Like, how do you do that with your kid?
Plus in the video, that woman that worked for an agency that does some sort of placements, temporary placements of unaccompanied minors. Where's that news been? How come the people haven't been like talking about that? You know, that there's so many kids that are unaccompanied, and the fake activists are like, we're having trouble getting them across the border because it's a legal situation. Why didn't they work with the resources right there? And the woman says, we've hardly gotten any applications.
Because
they're not trying to solve the problem.
or they're doing it in the most obtuse, ineffective way that they can, which leaves a lot of questions for me.
Yep.
I have a lot of questions. Here is the visit that was made by the pastor along with Walter and the other migrants, maybe the ones that he was entrusted to by the dad, as they take both Walter and a young lady to the human rights office. Here it is. There's a young lady. She's about 12.
Por aquí vinimos con
Here we go.
dos familias.
We've got two families
Y,
here.
pues, prácticamente vinimos a
Practically,
derechos humanos, aquí está
we're here at
derechos humanos.
Human Rights. This
Pedimos
is the building.
asesoría,
To request
consejería, porque, pues,
some
un papá se fue y
advice,
dejó un menor de edad a cargo de
because the
otro
father left his
inmigrante de
child here
nosotros
and
cuando
left
salió
him
a
in charge with
Guatemala.
another migrant.
Luego hay otro papá
And there was another dad
que quiere mandar con
who
alguien a su hija
wants to
para
send his daughter
Guatemala.
back home, back to Guatemala,
Y,
with
y,
another
pues,
stranger,
queremos,
with another
verle el proceso
practically
legal. Ahorita vamos a ir al consulado
stranger.
de
And so
Guatemala
we want to know what the
para
legal
que ellos
process
nos
is,
den
to know,
instrucciones
how
cómo
can
se
they
puede hacer y con
send their kids
el
back but do it legally,
y cómo puede haber una coordinación
and
para
how
que
they
les
can
toque
coordinate with
correctamente.
local
Caso
authorities.
será más común de lo que nosotros pensamos.
This
Están enviando
phenomenon
a
is more
sus
common
hijos
than
con
we
otras
know of.
personas, otras a sus países.
That,
Pero, pues, ahorita vamos
some
a ir,
people are
a ver qué nos
wanting
dice
to
el
send their
doctor.
kids back to their countries. How common did you know of that happening?
So let me get this straight. People are bringing their kids thousands of miles, spending months to try to get asylum in the U.S., and trying to bring their children across the border. Now,
And they were told to bring kids.
yeah, and because they're going to have vacation, keep them together. And now they're shipping their kids off without them, and then they're going someplace else. It's like, and it's not like they're saying that I'm going to go request asylum by myself. I'm going to ship my kid back home and have them be with somebody else, and I'm going someplace else.
It's hard to understand.
That's what's happening, though, right?
Oh yeah, you described it correctly.
I was confused.
No, it's weird and it's hard to like. When I was putting the show together, I was like grumbling under my breath the whole time. I'm like, what in the hell is going on?
Yeah, really.
Because I couldn't figure it out. It doesn't make any sense. And, now they're in this situation where they're trying to figure out what to do right by these kids that just basically were abandoned by their parent. I shudder to think how these kids feel. Like, I'm a something-year-old woman, and at my age, if my parents stand me up for a date or a visit, I get upset. I cannot even imagine what it'd be like to just wake up, have your parent wake you up, or not even say goodbye and be like,
Yep.
Bye.
For your affair, see ya.
Here is another video where they're at a fruit vendor's and they're talking about what they're about to do next. Here they go. We're close to the consulate of Guatemala now. We're going to turn over to the children to the custody of the Guatemalan consulate. They're going to take care of this child, Walter. The father didn't say anything to us. He was going to leave the kid behind. So we came to find out, we found out what was the most appropriate way of doing things, and the consulate said they'll take custody of him. So here we are. We're just about to turn him over to their custody, to the Guatemalan consulate. But before we do, we're going to get a fruit cup. And they're eating their fruit cup, and then look yummy, don't they, those fruit cups? Here they are eating their fruit cups, having a final fruit cup before they all go. And this is what they had to say. So here we are. We're getting ready to turn this child over to the consulate. This is a consulate building for Guatemala. You're going to go in a plane, right? Wow. That's great. Here we are with the consulate. His father left him in the shelter with us and with a migrant. And after consulting with the consulate, the most appropriate thing to do is to be leaving him here. And they're going to speak to his mom and turn him over to his mom all the way home in Guatemala. So we're turning him over to them. May God bless you, child. You're going to see your mom soon. And with all your family, your cousins and everything.
Wow.
Walter didn't look very happy there, but in this next video where they're in the Guatemalan consul, it's a little different. Check this out. Here's the video from the Guatemalan consul. They're still outside. There's the building. Here we go.
All right.
Walking. We're arriving now at the consulate of Guatemala. So a father left his son in the care of another migrant so that he could take him back to Guatemala without telling us, or we didn't really know about it. That happened 2 days ago. So we got to figure out what to do with this minor that was left behind. And then there's another dad that wants to send his daughter with somebody he doesn't know that's not her relative back to Guatemala. So we're going to get some, say hello to the camera. We're going to get some advice on what to do. And then here they are after they've, got to the, let's go to the kids flying video, please.
Okay, one moment.
One moment, please. So now they're getting the advice inside, and the kids flying video shows Pastor Albert talking about their flights home inside the council. There's a little girl, the migrant. There's Walter. Smile, son. Wow, you're going to be flying on a plane, huh? Wow.
Avión.
A plane.
Amén. Bueno, Dios los bendiga.
May God bless you.
También en avión.
And you're going to go on a plane too. And she laughs.
Aquí estamos en el
Here we are at the
consulado de
consulate
Guatemala.
for Guatemala. Okay, what did you think about that, Duke?
Oh, that was weird. You're going to go on a plane. It's like, aren't you heartbroken that you're been abandoned? You know, I think we might need to have someone that you should talk to. So you're probably really upset. No, you're just going to go, here, have some fruit. Enjoy yourself. Go on a plane. Adios.
See you later.
See you later. Would want to be, you know, it's like, wow, that's very harsh. Very harsh.
And here they are leaving the consulate after they're, you know, without the children, just going back to the shelter. Children, unaccompanied minors, left with some consulate employees at the Guatemalan consulate. You can see the pastor starts off down a hallway where he's filming from a distance as they leave. Here's that clip. We only get to see Walter. We're leaving the consulate, leaving the children here. There's a little girl. She peeked her face around the corner. And he waves.
Aquí acabamos de dejar
We just left the children,
el niño, los dos niños aquí,
the two children,
aquí en el consulado de
at the consulate
Guatemala.
of Guatemala.
Ya estamos saliendo del consulado.
And now we're leaving.
Job done. Oh, my God.
I mean, I don't know how you wouldn't be somewhat traumatized as the pastor of that shelter having to do that kind of thing all the time. Like, okay, we're taking some kids whose parents just abandoned them here, and I have to follow the law because, you know, he at least always is going to the proper city authorities. A lot of these Border Support Network people did not.
Yeah.
They demonized the Mexican authorities and did not want to have anything to do with them. And they also demonized the pastor as well. So, you know, what the pastor told me is that many of these single parents that are traveling with a child, they are not going to be able to work for the next 6 months to a year, wherever, you know, like when waiting for their court date in Mexico. And what are they going to do with their kids there in Tijuana? It's another mouth to feed that they can't afford to feed.
Exactly.
Plus, those kids are missing school, Duke, and you can't enroll them in Mexico.
Yeah.
So how are they going to go
To care for their children, yeah.
how are they going to properly care for these kids that are going to be stuck in a process that could be 6 months to a year or longer? And so finally, he said that many of these children know that what it was like to go to the hielera, what it was, you know, the experience that they went through going through the detention facilities when they went through there or initially to request asylum. And there is a possibility that if and when they go back into the United States, they have to go through the detention system or wait in a detention facility until they're hearing. Things like that are terrifying. And many of these kids are saying, I want to go home.
Yeah.
I don't want to go through that again. I don't want to go to the U.S. because they've been traumatized through that process. And many of these kids, you know, have grandparents or other family members back home. And after having gone through the harrowing experience of, you know, traveling with a caravan and going through detention and swimming across a river and all these different things that these little kids have experienced, they just want to go back home to grandma.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, this is too much for a lot of these little kids. I mean, that little boy, Walter, didn't he just look so fragile?
Yeah, for sure. He looked like he's really fed up.
Tiny little kid. I mean, he smiled, and, you know, I'm sure that the pastor's trying to make the best of a bad situation for all of these kids. But it is really terrible when you think of how these fake folks were given false hope, brought under false pretenses, lied to, exploited, and in many cases now are put in these horrible decisions where they have to just abandon their kids or send them back home by themselves. Wow, it's just really heartbreaking, the situation in its whole, you know? some of these people, of course, are self-deporting, taking advantage of this free flight back home because they have to get more evidence for their court cases. And nobody told them they were going to need to bring documentation. I told you. And now, now they have to go fly back, or, bus back to their countries. Some of these people want to be able to work. If you don't have actual documents to work in Mexico, because you came in with a caravan undocumented or whatever, there's a process they have to go through there.
Yeah.
And it's, again, they're going to be here for months without jobs in Tijuana. Excuse me. So many of them also, as Pastor Albert Rivera said, realize they don't have a real case for political asylum. Just, they dawned on them.
Yeah.
So they're going to other Mexican states so they can try to cross from there illegally into the U.S. Anywho.
Yeah.
Rather than cross and request asylum, just cross illegally and try to find a job that way. Because they figured, guess what? I ain't going to get this political asylum thing. So I'm going to try something else. It's harder for them to cross the border right there in Tijuana. So they have to leave Tijuana.
I see.
Because when they were given false hopes, they were also told, go to Tijuana.
Yep.
And now they're stranded there in one of the parts of the country where the border wall is the most difficult to get across, especially with your kid.
Yep, exactly.
And because of the wall, they do go on to try to cross by New Mexico and Texas, right? And some of them want to get into the U.S. to cross through the U.S. so they can get into Canada.
Oh, yeah.
And get a work permit to go to work in Canada. And if things don't go well for them, they're going to try to cross into Canada because guess what? They don't have a wall in Canada.
Yep.
So many of these folks thinking that if they had kids, it would be easy to get into the U.S., to get out of detention more quickly, and to get asylum granted to them, are now realizing that none of that was true, that the kid is actually weight that they cannot, dead weight that they cannot afford. Some people are just abandoning their kids. And what happened to the American dream? Bye-bye, American dream.
Yep.
So who is actually getting asylum? Well, here's an article in the Excelsior that talks about one lucky dude who did get asylum. Who is this guy? He is out of the 14,000 migrants that are waiting in Mexico for asylum. This evangelical Honduran pastor that was reforming gang members is the first one to get asylum. And Duke, who wrote this article?
The same dude as before?
The same dude, Manuel Ocaño.
There it is, yep.
Manuel Ocaño, once again, same dude. And what did he say? Well, in this article, they talk about how this guy named Alec got this one asylum claim that was granted, and that, this study from Syracuse University determined that by the end of June, 13,900 migrants had been incorporated into Mexico through the migrant protection protocols, and that only 14 of them had lawyers.
Jeez.
Out of 14,000 almost, only 1% had legal representation.
Wow.
We heard it before. I'll say it again. They lied.
Yep.
They knew that they were lying and giving these false hopes to the migrants requesting asylum, but they lied to them anyway. And who was it that lied? Well, let's take a look at some of Manuel Ocaño's other social media, shall we?
Oh, yeah.
Here's Manuel's post about Irineo Mujica
Oh, really?
and his arrest. Yeah. He's also tagged there with Gina Garibo of Pueblos Sin Fronteras and Elena Alderman of Pueblos Sin Fronteras, the German-looking blonde chick with the cat avatar on her Facebook.
Oh, okay.
With the wig. Remember the cat with the wig?
Mm-hmm.
It looks like this is something that he either posted, that he filmed himself, that he was at. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Does it have a caption at the bottom that says that it's somebody else's video? Or, no, sorry, over there. I think it's his video. And it is an alert. It's a warning that was given by Irina Mujica on September 1st of 2018 that municipal police were torturing migrants in the streets. And there's a number of comments that are made about this post. Do you have those or no? No, I guess this one doesn't have those. Okay, some of these have interesting comments. This next post is one where Hugo Castro, the leader of Border Angels, involved with Cultura Migrante, as he himself said in his video, when Irina Mujica was recently arrested, that tags a bunch of people. It's talking about the Unified U.S. deported veterans, which have been promoted by a lot of the same folks. It tags Border Angels, of course, Presente, mothers and families deported in action, Presente, the shelter that is run by Border Angels in Playas de Tijuana, Embajada Migrante, and they're running roll call here, and then they tag Manuel Ocaño. But they also tag some other interesting people. I won't go through the whole list of everyone that's on here, but they also tag Bertie Gutierrez.
Okay, I see.
And they also tag Mohammed El Nakib of the San Diego Rapid Response Network. Bertie Gutierrez, of course, is from the Bridges of Love Across Borders. And they also tag Gaba Cortez, the woman, the witchy-looking woman that appeared in the video with Hugo Castro when they were both pleading for the immediate release of Irina Mujica. There's Al Otro Lado's lawyer, Nicole Ramos, tagged as well. All of these folks tagged in the same post by Hugo Castro of Border Angels. And then there's this post where Manuel Ocaño tags a video in which he is interviewing Mark Lane and Shane Parmalee in a park in the United States of America. He is a Mexican that crosses into the U.S. frequently to do interviews that spotlight various people in the Border Support Network with high profiles that are working with Pueblos Sin Fronteras, like Shane Parmalee and Mark Lane. And this was a long time ago video. So they have ties that go back, because this was back when they were protesting the local government criminalizing feeding the homeless, and they were there to get arrested. And as you can see, even a year ago, Mark Lane was wearing a #resist hat in response to the administration of Donald Trump. Just saying. And here is that video.
You think it's necessary to come out and do this and oppose this ban?
You'll hear Manuel Ocaño speak at some point in his thick accent.
Because we don't want to criminalize helping homeless people. I mean, this is a completely discriminatory act. If they had said the parks are contaminated with Agape, no one can eat there, okay, that's overkill. But what they said is the parks are contaminated with Agape, homeless people can't eat there, but everybody else, you go ahead and keep having your parties. Because you're having a social event, and homeless people are not that's not a social event.
Yeah, just to kind of reiterate on what she says, it's it's really, really important that when these cities make ordinances that criminalize, no panhandling, no camping, no loitering, those kind of things, that criminalize poor people is essentially what they're doing. then we need to fight back and we need to push back, and that's what we're doing. This is, if we don't push back, follows in line with the other cities. Immediately after this ban was put into place, La Jolla Town Council asked the church to stop feeding the homeless. They weren't even feeding them in La Jolla. They were feeding them outside of La Jolla, but they said they would bring Agape back to the church, and then the people in the congregation would get it. So we have to push back. And, I'm a big follower of Martin Luther King, and he tells us that if a law is immoral and unjust, you must reject it.
What is the human thinking when it's happening? They don't like poor people. They don't want to have poor people in the city.
Well, they started off by banning panhandling at the first October meeting, and then they followed up with the now you can't give people food either.
And prior to that, they had an anti-camping ordinance, and they came in the middle of the night in this park and rousted all the homeless people that were sleeping, took their sleeping bags, took their tents, threw away their stuff, and ticketed people.
Do you know how many homeless people are in the Cajun?
The official, when I read the official number with the census, was because they attribute to different communities. Official numbers was about 343. I read in the Union Tribune this week, it's estimated at 700 in El Cajon, and there's not enough community organizations to take care of them as it is, and to stop people from doing it makes it even worse.
So, I didn't want to play the rest of that video because it's kind of irrelevant.
Okay.
But what I wanted people to hear was that Ocaño was asking some, questions in his accent. You could hear that was him.
Mm-hmm.
Of Mark Lane about what he's doing there. But, he's not just a journalist. He's a journalist that favors reporting on a small, select group of people over and over and over again, like a lot of these folks have. Cultura Migrante posted this. Cultura Migrante, run by, among others, Hugo Castro of Border Angels, that brought you Cultura Migrante. Border Angel Hugo Castro posted this this march that I showed you clips of before with the Border Angel lady next to Nicole Ramos in her flannel shirt.
Yep.
And I showed you there was a whole bunch of different people that showed up, including Pitaya Queen and all of these people from, Diversidad Sin Fronteras, from a lot of these other Border Support Network groups that all weren't just there. Like Al Otro Lado isn't just there to be part of this lawyers group. She's in a march.
Mm-hmm.
So is Pitaya Queen. She's not just there to escort people or give them support. They're part of the marching, part of the protesting, part of the propaganda, part of all of the hubbub. And if you scroll further down on that picture from that day, you'll notice that they have a bunch of hashtags. And who took the photo? Manuel Ocaño was one of the photographers at the event. Now, in the previous video that we just saw, you saw Mark Lane, and you saw a woman on there. Her name is Shane Parmalee. I didn't talk about her very much. I haven't talked about her very much, but let me just tell you who Shane Parmalee is. She may look familiar to you because she was in a viral video with regard to immigration. She said she's a teacher, okay? She also has a lot of very well connected political ties in California, and she's a whiz at making things go viral too. She's connected to Mark Lane, Bertie Gutierrez, and a lot of the people from the Border Support Network, and a lot of power, political power, clout of that sort in California. And Shane Parmalee is a whiz at the messaging and at the viraling of things. In her viral video, they kind of, set the stage for who Shane Parmalee is in regard to immigration policy. She was crossing a border checkpoint within the United States, and she refused to give any information to the Border Patrol officers about whether or not she was a U.S. citizen. It was kind of a tutorial also on how other people could do the same. And she was basically, she's like, I'm a school teacher and I want to teach my students and my kids. She had her kids in the car with her too. I want to teach everybody that, this is wrong, that these checkpoints are wrong. And she referred to them at checkpoints, which is supposed to, trigger your memory of, you're not supposed to have, like in Nazi Germany, you're not supposed to have like these places where they check your papers. And where there's checkpoints internally. That it had that kind of a vibe. The video. Do you remember a video with the long blonde?
Yeah, I remember it. I remember it was like a know your rights type thing. It's just, I do remember. Yeah, definitely.
I bet a lot of people will remember if they just saw that blonde haired woman with the glasses on. She could be anybody, but once you know the story about the viral video, you're like, oh yeah, I remember seeing that. And she very handily, it took her about an hour, but she very handily went through the checkpoint without answering the questions, without getting arrested. I think they even let her son go in to use the bathroom.
Probably.
Because they were there for so long. And that's not the only people that he is. Manuel Ocaño is not just a photographer and a writer that's always at the same place at the same time with the same people. He also posts questions, like he's doing some footwork on social media to help folks. Here he posted a question to Nicole Ramos, tagging her in the post, asking for a group of Muslims, 25 Muslims, that want to know how they can help with the children.
Oh, okay, I remember this.
And you scroll down, and you can see Nicole Ramos is tagged there, and you can scroll further down, and let's see, keep going. I just want to make sure that there wasn't anything in the comments that Nicole Ramos responded to. There she is. She says, back to the original question. The group is located here in Tijuana, Manuel. I think we all have something to give in this fight, and I'm interested in talking about how we can use your support. And he responds to her and to others. So, direct line to Nicole Ramos. They're friends on Facebook, obviously.
Yep.
And he does more than just take photos. He is also recruiting volunteers and saying, oh, I'm a connector. I'm going to help you with this. I just want to show it's a above and beyond reporter if I ever saw one. And then they've got him posting his ideas about the border wall. And it says that Donald J. Trump, when he got into office, was campaigning with the fact that he was going to build the wall. But here it is, far into his presidency, and he hasn't built any wall. That's what this whole post on Manuel Ocaño's page was really about.
I see.
Why is Trump a failure? And so he's got some opinions about the border wall.
Oh, yeah.
Here's a post he made. It looks like he's traveling with the caravan and photographing them. So apparently that was something he also did. And this is not just one photo. This is not a one-off. By the way, it came from November 4th of 2018. No, here's another one where they're ready to go to Tijuana. And once again, they're walking. And he says, we're ready to go out. They're in Mexicali. They're ready to go to Tijuana. Looks like they're going to walk there.
Yep.
And it says on the comments, why are they walking? Why aren't they getting transport from the mayor of the town? And Manuel said, because they want many millions. So they want too much money. They won't just ship these people to the next town. That's why they had to walk.
Yeah.
And Manuel also posted a letter that he sent to the mayor of Tijuana, Mayor Manuel Gastelum, in which he says, would you be kind enough to read this?
Oh, definitely. Manuel Ocaño. Mr. Juan Manuel Gastelum, Mayor of Tijuana. 22nd City Hall, to whom it may concern. In response to the city's request for press to register for official city accreditation, the Guild of Local Reporters, together with staff and freelance representatives of foreign and national media covering the caravan, hereby inform you, in the name of freedom of expression, we have organized amongst ourselves and reject this offer of accreditation from your office.
So they don't want to be given accreditation to be doing reporting in the city of Tijuana by him.
Really.
Mm-hmm.
We consider this action a violation of the right to inform and the free exercise of journalism. Our duty is to inform the public, and given the current atmosphere in Tijuana, it is also essential for us journalists to protect our personal information. Wow. Additionally, this new requirement for city press accreditation would impact independent media and freelance media workers in particular, who, although working under assignment from local, national, and international media, are often unable to produce accreditation from the media company they work for.
You mean the ones that are helping people cross illegally?
Yeah, and the ones that are scammers and just doing live streams. Since it is common practice not to issue official media accreditation to contributors or non-staff members by media companies. We'd also like to take this opportunity to ask the City of Tijuana to pay more attention to the press access at the Benito Juarez Sports Center, since the reduced timetables the City Council unilaterally established often clash with the time when breaking news events take place in the region.
Please pass the Grey Poupon.
That's right.
Wait. Scroll down to the bottom and see who commented. Why, it's Brooke Bigkowski. Do you remember who Brooke Bigkowski is, Duke?
Did she work for that congressperson?
Well, no. Actually, this woman worked for some kind of something like Snopes. I don't know.
Okay.
Remember? But wait, let me show you where you are remembering you saw her name from.
Okay.
And here is the post she made about that article written by, the San Diego Union Tribune, Wendy Fry, that quoted Evan K. Duke III, the Antifa leader of the Border Support Network, talking about yours truly and my radio talk show being the source of the reason why these people in the leaked list were being investigated by Border Patrol and by Homeland Security in the U.S. This is what was posted by Brooke Bigkowski.
I remember
and
now.
Look who comments on the post talking about yours truly, why it is none other than Mark Lane, who says that they cross all the time and that Border Patrol
messes with them all the time.
Yeah, they use the F word, though. And then Mark Lane says that show in North Dakota, again, he's talking about a Mexican crossing lines, talks about me being a human trafficker. No, Mark Lane, I repeat what other people have accused you of doing, including people that are in Tijuana that have been working with migrants. And so it says that we have also shared videos of him in Tijuana working. The lady whose show it is Mexican and super aggressive.
Oh, boy.
And, of course, this is a post in which you also saw Brooke Bigkowski by Nicole Ramos, who goes by @LuzEnLaFrontera on Twitter, where Nicole was sarcastically asking about border security and why CBP searched Al Otro Lado's staff and wrote down the names of, their clients and, basically why are they being investigated. Mm-hmm. And Brooke Bigkowski responded and said she too has been pulled over into secondary questioning. These folks apparently seem to have never traveled to another country in their lives before. Because, I will repeat once again, this is routine and normal, but they act like they're under Nazi German regime.
Yep.
Because somebody pulled them into secondary. And by the way, they're hanging out with a lot of people who are doing devious things and are being investigated, including by Interpol, for human smuggling. I didn't do that. I don't have that much power. Mm-hmm. I simply report on what is going on. Nicole also recently tweeted this. This is about how you can become a court observer. Remember I started talking about this a while back? That they wanted to have volunteers for Al Otro Lado so that they could go sit in the courtrooms and observe what's going on.
Yep.
Why? Well, the title, it says, according to Al Otro Lado's post here, quoting the Rewire News article, says that without accountability, it's a black hole in terms of what's happening to asylum seekers, which is why it's crucial to document the human cost, quote, human cost of the collective policies that Trump has enacted. They always got to throw the president in there. And the Rewire News article is this one titled, Court Observers Are Shining a Light on the Immigration Court System. And Duke, who wrote this article?
Is that the same dude?
No.
Oh.
Who is it? Do you recognize that name, Duke? It's Ari Harnorvar.
Oh, Ari. Yeah,
Right.
okay,
That was doing the music program in Oscar El Blue Ramirez's video.
Yep.
At the recent video Oscar El Blue Ramirez did at the Caritas shelter run by Mark Lane.
That's right.
Do you not see how the fix is in, Duke?
Oh, yeah.
Do you not see how the fix is done? They literally have their media achichincles, minions.
All lined up.
They have them do whatever the messaging needs to be. They get it viralized. They put it out in front of millions of eyes, thousands of eyes. They're raising money. They're quoted in all sorts of media. In this particular article, written by Ari Harnorvar, one of Nicole Ramos's buddies and Mark Lane's buddies, that wrote that teen Vogue article about LGBTQIA with Mark and, remember? Yeah, same Ari Harnorvar. Quotes Al Otro Lado here, lawyer named M.M. Maras, who says he's an immigration attorney, a binational nonprofit, Al Otro Lado, and that the organization recently launched this program to collect information and bring transparency to the migrant protection protocols. Remember, this woman's organization is suing the president and many other agencies, and they don't just have one lawsuit. They have several. And of course, Maras, the lawyer for Al Otro Lado here, claims that it's a black hole. It's a court system. It's not a black hole. Come on. Why do they always have to exaggerate? Maras described a judge who asked an asylum seeker to designate the country of his removal in case his asylum was denied. And, quote, the man said, "I can't go back to Honduras," said the attorney Maras. The judge then asked the government's lawyer for a recommendation, and the government lawyer was glumly said, "Honduras." And the judge said, "Okay, Honduras."
Honduras it is.
Honduras it is. So, of course, they also talk about the Remain in Mexico policy. You know, all of this is very much based on policy changes, attacking the president's current policy decisions. And I don't know if you agree with the president. I've told you there are lots of things I dislike about how he talks, some of the lies that he has been caught telling or not explaining what he said very well. I talked about this at length in my last program. You can dislike a lot of things, but this goes beyond. This is what a lot of people are calling that Trump derangement syndrome, where people literally lose their minds. And this is the kind of candy those people are looking for. They're looking to turn people like Nicole Ramos into some, Mother Teresa-like figure that is going to, fight against that evil, racist, white supremacist, fascist president. That's the picture that they want to paint, and they have media people that help them paint the picture.
Yep.
And they do a pretty good job.
Yep.
And of course, they do so all while being homeless, barely able to, afford shoes or clothes or, drive a vehicle. As Nicole Ramos loves to tell you, she is almost destitute. She tweeted also that, her picture of her with a Sharpie in her hand, kind of filling in some kind of, she looks like she's just like marking on her shirt, her black tank top.
Mm-hmm.
It says, Tijuana al otro lado life. When you have an important meeting and your good, quote unquote, good outfit consists of a skirt from the downstairs pile, the donation pile, basically,
Mm-hmm.
a $2 flip-flops from the supermarket, and a skirt with a bleach stain. So your office mate does you a solid and hands you a black Sharpie to keep your look professional.
Oh, yes. Those poor, poor people.
Those poor, poor lawyers.
Mm-hmm.
You heard Nora Phillips talking about this.
Yep, my mansion in Mexico.
Speaking of Nora Phillips, Manuel also posted about her being stopped, questioned. That LA Times article that immigrant rights attorneys and journalists are denied entry into Mexico. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
And you'll also notice that Mohammed El Nakib made a post about Ilhan Omar's anti-Semitic comments, tagging Linda Sarsour, Winnie Wong, Ilhan Omar herself, among others, and sharing a tweet by Representative Juan Vargas that said that it is disturbing that Representative Omar continues to perpetuate hurtful anti-Semitic stereotypes that misrepresent our Jewish community. Additionally, questioning support for the U.S.-Israel relationship is unacceptable. And who commented? This was made originally by, it looks like, Aramika for Congress. Remember I told you about Aramika and the connection to TYT, the Young Turks. And in the comments section below, you will see there is a message from Mr. Manuel Ocaño, the reporter.
Oh, there he is.
And he says, he chimes in on this and says that it's becoming stupid. It's ignorant to read anything anti-Semitic into what Ilhan Omar was saying. Okay?
Yeah.
So, again, I want to just show you, and I wanted you guys to decide on your own, whether you think this man is merely a photographer, a journalist, writing some of these stories, or is he, like so many of these other media allies that continually appear in the stories that paint a specific picture, one that's very rosy, for some of the mercenary activists involved in these caravans, in these asylum seekers? Or is he something more? I will leave that decision up to you. Thank you for watching tonight's program here on Mexican Line with your hosts, Cindy Gomez-Schempp
and Duke Gomez-Schempp.
You've been listening to 88.1 FM at KPPPLP Fargo Moorhead, where we are adding local color to your airwaves. Thanks for sharing, and buenas noches.